Okay, so topic for this video is going to be equations of circles. And our essential question is going to be, how are circles graphed on a coordinate plane and how are their equations written? All right, just to dive in here, the equation of a circle is always written in a standard form of x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to r squared. So what do these letters mean? Well, oops, I meant to highlight there. H and K are going to be the coordinates of the center, and R is the radius. So, for example here, that would be our H, that would be the K. And then our R will be the length of the radius. So the H value is the X, or the H is the X value of the center, the K is the Y value of the center, and the R is the actual radius. So for example 1, we're just going to try to take this information. They're going to give us the center and the radius, and we're just going to try to write it out. So if our general form, if our general form is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to r squared, then this would be x minus 5 squared plus y minus negative 2, so that would flip to y plus 2 squared, is equal to 9, right? Because we got to square that radius. So if we try to plug in the information here, we would have x minus 0 squared plus y minus 4 squared is equal to 25 when we square 5. But that x minus 0 squared, we don't even really need to write that because x minus 0 is just x. So we would write it as x squared plus y minus 4 squared is equal to 25. And that'd be the equation of the circle in standard form. All right, so now these ones, they're going to give us some graphs, and we're going to try to write the information. So in this one, our center, I'm just going to call it our C, would be at -2, -1. And our radius, if I draw on the radius here, that's 2. So our equation would be x minus -2, so x plus 2 squared. Wow, that's an awful 2. Let me try that again. X plus 2 squared plus y minus -1, so y plus 1 squared is equal to 2 squared, which is 4. So for this one, our center looks to be at +2, +1. And our radius looks like it's 3. So this would be x minus 2 squared plus y minus 1 squared is equal to 3 squared, which is 9. All right, so far so good. Let's keep it going. Onto the inside. This time they're going to want us to graph some stuff. So they're giving us an equation. They want us to graph it. Well, based on that information, our center should be at -2, +2. Remember, it's kind of the inverses of the signs that we see. If I see an x plus 2, that means that it was x minus -2, so the center's at -2. And then my radius should be the square root of whatever they said. So the square root of 9, so the radius is 3. So let's go to -2, +2. Put a point down there. And then with a radius of 3, that means that I'm going to go over 3. Put a point there. I'm going to go up 3 from the center. Put a point there. Left 3. Put a point there. Down 3. Put a point there. And then I'm just going to do my best to make a kind of nice looking circle. Not the greatest circle in the world, but that will work. So same deal here for number 4. Based on the information they gave me, there's nothing with the x, so that means the x value is 0. And then I see a y plus 1, which means that it was really a y minus -1. So my center's at 0, -1. And my radius should be the square root of the thing over on the right side. So the square root of 16 is 4. Okay, so let's plot this out. 0, -1 is my center, right there. And then my radius of 4 means I go over 1, 2, 3, 4. Put a point there. I can go up 4 from the center. 1, 2, 3, 4 is right here. 1, 2, 3, 4 is right here. And 1, 2, 3, 4 is down here. So that's going to give me enough information to kind of make a mediocre looking circle like that. Okay, what about this one? So let's write the equation of the circle with the given information. So this one's giving me a center. That's cool. It's giving me a point on the circle. Now normally when we write our equation, we would be like, hey, this is x minus 4 squared. Wow, what is happening with my exponents? X minus 4 squared plus y plus 5 squared is equal to, I don't know. We don't have the radius, right? So I don't have enough information to put over there. So what we need to do is we really need to use that point on the circle they gave us. In order to find the radius, what we're going to do is we're going to take these 2 points and we're going to do the distance formula. Because the radius is the distance from the center of the circle to any point on the circle, right? It's the distance that the circle is away from the center. So if we do the distance formula, we can find this radius. So remember the distance formula, we do x minus x, so 4 minus 7. And then we're going to do y minus a negative is plus. So -5 plus 1. All right, 4 minus 3 is -3. -5 plus 1 is -4. -3 squared is 9. -4 squared is 16. 9 plus 16 is 25. And the square root of 25 is 5. So back to my equation. X minus 4 squared plus y plus 5 squared equals 25, because remember we put the radius squared over there. So even if you get something that's not a nice square root, like that one was a perfect square, so that was great. But even if you got something as your final part of the distance formula, you don't need to bother simplifying it because it's just going to get squared again when you write your equation. Okay, so last part, we got some tricky stuff here. They're going to give us an equation that is certainly not in standard form. It says determine the coordinates of the center and the length of the radius of the circle with the following equation. So this is x squared plus 2x plus y squared minus 10y equals 55. This thing is not in the standard form that we want it to be in. Because if it's not in standard form, then we can't figure out what the radius and the center is. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through a little process called completing the square to figure out what it is in standard form. So here's how completing the square works. We're going to take this part and add a blank after it. We're going to take this part, add a blank after it, and when we add those blanks, remember that we also have to add the blanks to this side to keep our equation balanced. Now, the reason we're adding those blanks is because what we're going to try to do is turn both of those, for lack of a better word, expressions into perfect squares. Okay, because we know that the standard form has the x as a perfect square and the y expression as a perfect square because they're both being squared. So we need to make these into squares so that we can turn it back into standard form. Now, how do we make this back into a perfect square? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the coefficient of the x term and divide it by 2. Okay, I divided it by 2, and now I'm going to take that result and I'm going to square it. And whatever I get there goes into that blank. Now, if that goes into that blank, it's also got to go into this blank. Same deal over here. Let's take the coefficient of the y term, divide it by 2 to get -5, square it to get 25, and that goes into that blank. Now, what we just did by going through that little process is we turned that whole section that I underlined under yellow into a perfect square. If we think about what multiplies to make 1 but adds to be 2, like if we were acting like we were going to factor it, maybe it would be even better to just write it out like we were factoring it. If I was trying to factor x squared plus 2x plus 1, and I think about what multiplies to make 1 and adds to make 2, well, it would be x plus 1 and x plus 1, right? Or, since it's x plus 1 times x plus 1, that would be x plus 1 squared. So that whole original thing turns into this. Now let's imagine that we're doing it for the section that I underlined under green with all the y's. What multiplies to make 25 but adds to make -10? Well, that would be y minus 5 and y minus 5, which would turn into y minus 5 squared. So that whole part turns into this. And then what do I have over on the right-hand side of the equal sign? 55 plus 25 is 80, plus 1 is 81. So this is equivalent to what we started with. It's just rewritten back into standard form, since we turned those individual chunks into perfect squares. And now we can actually answer the question. The center is at -1, 5, and the radius is 9, since it was all equal to 81. So kind of a weird process, but that's what it takes to convert it back into standard form. All right, let's try it one more time here. So same deal. Let me spread it out a little bit. Add that blank after the 6x. Add the blank after the 24y. And add the blanks over here. Okay, so let's start with the x section. Remember, we start off by figuring out what goes in the blank by taking the coefficient, dividing it by 2, and then squaring it to make 9. Now let's do this part. We take the coefficient, divide it by 2, square the -12 to get 144. Okay. So now what is like if we were factoring that x squared plus 6x plus 9, what multiplies to make 9 adds to make 6? It's 3 and 3, so it's x plus 3 squared. That's what the yellow section turned into. The green part, multiply to make 144, add to make -24. That's -12 and -12. And then what's going over on the right side? -117 plus 9 plus 144 is 36. So what does that mean? That means that my center is at -3, 12, and my radius is 6. Now, just as a little hint, whatever you get here or here on that step, that's what goes into your parentheses. That's a little shortcut in case you start spotting it. So that might help save you some time. But don't forget, you absolutely need to find this part because that's what goes over there. All right, your turn to shine here. You've got some equations to write, and then one of the ones where you got to do the distance formula. So give those a shot and then come back to see how you did. All right, our first one should have been x minus 3 squared plus y minus 11 squared equals 49. This one should have been x plus 5 squared plus y minus 9 squared is equal to 1, because you square 1, it's still 1. For these ones, what should our equation be here? This should be x minus 2 squared plus y plus 2 squared equals 1. This one should be x minus 1 squared plus just y squared, because the y value didn't go up or down, equals 16, because the radius was 4. And lastly, write the equation with that. So our equation should be x minus 2 squared plus y minus 5 squared equals, I don't know, let's do the distance formula. We do the distance formula with 2 minus 7 squared plus 5 plus 12 squared. Let's see here. So we're going to get negative 5 squared plus 17. Oh, no, not 12. I'm sorry. That should be a 7. 5 plus 7 is 12 squared. So that's 25 plus 144. That's 169. The square root of 169 is 13. But we turn it back into 169 over here. So x minus 2 squared plus y minus 5 squared equals 169. Hopefully that went well for y'all, and that's going to wrap this video up.